His foot slammed into her shin. An 8-year-old girl crumpled against the lockers, her drawing scattering across the floor. 5 words had triggered this violence. 5 words that came from a child's mouth. My mommy's a Navy SEAL. They circled her like wolves. A colonel's son. His teenage sister with her phone recording. Parents watching from the doorway laughing. Say it again, the boy taunted. Tell us your mommy's a superhero. Sophia looked up, blood on her knee, tears burning, but refusing to fall. She's coming. Nobody believed her. They should have. Subscribe now. You don't want to miss what happens when that door opens. Sophia Reyes held her breath when the teacher called her name. She was 8 years old, small for her age. Dark hair pulled into 2 braids that her mother had tied that morning before dawn, when the house was still quiet and the coffee was still brewing. Her shoes were polished. Her dress was pressed. And in her hands she clutched a piece of paper that she'd spent 3 weeks creating. It was a drawing, her best one yet. A woman in uniform, a golden pin on her chest, and underneath, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, my mom is a hero. Sophia Reyes, the teacher repeated. Would you like to come up and introduce your family? The room was full of parents, military parents, proud parents, the kind who wore their ranks like armor and their medals like proof. Bayside Elementary sat 3 miles from the naval base, and every family in this room had a connection to the uniform, except apparently for Sophia. She walked to the front slowly. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Around her, other kids had already gone. They'd stood next to fathers in pressed dress blues, mothers in pearls and proud smiles, grandfathers with ribbons that stretched across their chests like colorful wounds. Sophia had no one standing beside her. My name is Sophia Reyes, she said. Her voice was small but steady. My mom couldn't be here tonight. She had training, but she's coming soon. She held up her drawing. My mom is a Navy SEAL. The silence that followed wasn't the respectful kind. It was the kind that judged. Patricia Harrington was the first to laugh, not loudly, just a sharp exhale through her nose, the kind that said, oh, how precious, and how pathetic at the same time. She sat in the second row, legs crossed, designer bag resting on the chair beside her, like it needed its own seat. Her husband Frank sat next to her, a full-bird colonel with a jawline that could cut glass and eyes that had never learned to soften. Did she just say, SEAL? Patricia whispered to the woman beside her. Brenda Shaw nodded, lips pressed into a smirk. Bless her heart. Derek Shaw. Brenda's husband leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. Major Shaw had done 2 tours in Afghanistan and never let anyone forget it. There's no such thing as a female SEAL, he said, not quietly. Someone's been watching too many movies. A ripple of laughter moved through the section. Sophia's cheeks flushed, but she didn't lower her drawing. She is, she said. She graduated from BUDS. She has a trident. More laughter now, the kind that came with shaking heads and exchanged glances. Sweetheart, Patricia said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. It's okay to be proud of your mom, but you don't have to make things up. I'm not making it up. Then where is she? Sophia's grip tightened on her paper. She's coming. Frank Harrington snorted. Sure she is. The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, stepped forward with an awkward smile. Thank you, Sophia. That was a lovely drawing. Let's give her a round of applause. A few parents clapped. Most didn't. Sophia walked back to her seat with her drawing pressed against her chest like a shield. She could feel their eyes on her. The whispers, the judgment, but she didn't cry. She sat down, stared at her desk, and waited. Because her mom was coming. She always came. The break was announced 15 minutes later. Parents stood stretched, migrated toward the coffee station in the back of the room. Kids wandered out into the hallway, grateful for the escape. Sophia slipped out with them, clutching her drawing, looking for somewhere quiet. She found a bench near the Lost and Found. It was tucked into a corner, away from the main traffic, next to a poster about kindness that nobody seemed to have read. She sat down and smoothed her drawing across her lap. The woman in the picture looked strong, brave. The trident on her chest was made of gold crayon, and Sophia had pressed so hard the paper had almost torn. There she is. Sophia looked up. Tyler Harrington was walking toward her. He was 13, tall for his age, with his father's jawline and his mother's smirk. Behind him came his sister Madison, 15 and bored, and 2 other kids whose names Sophia didn't know. "The little liar," Tyler said. Sophia stood up. "I'm not a liar." "You said your mom's a SEAL." "She is." Tyler laughed. "My dad's a colonel. He says there's no such thing as a female SEAL." "You made it up." "I didn't." "Then prove it." Tyler stepped closer. "Show me her trident." "She's not here yet." "Because she doesn't exist." Madison pulled out her phone. "This is so sad. Should I record this?" "Do it," Tyler said. "Post it everywhere. Little girl thinks her mom is G.I. Jane." Sophia's hands trembled, but she didn't back down. "My mom earned her trident. She went through Hell Week. Hell Week." Tyler laughed harder. "You don't even know what that means." "I do. It's when they..." "Stop talking." Tyler's voice dropped. The playfulness drained out of it. "You're embarrassing yourself." Sophia shook her head. "I'm telling the truth." "No, you're lying, and liars need to learn." He shoved her. Sophia stumbled backward, her shoulder hitting the lockers with a hollow clang. Her drawing slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. "Tyler," Madison said, but she was still recording. "Pick it up," Tyler said. "Pick up your fake drawing and admit you lied." Sophia reached for the paper, but Tyler stepped on it. The crayon smeared under his shoe. "Say it," he said. "Say your mom's not a SEAL." "No." "Say it." "No." Tyler's face twisted. "Fine." He kicked her. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to hurt. His foot connected with her shin and Sophia crumpled against the lockers, a sharp cry escaping her lips before she could stop it. "Tyler." Madison's voice was higher now, uncertain. "She deserved it," Tyler said. "Liars deserve it." Sophia sat on the floor, her leg throbbing, her drawing torn beneath Tyler's shoe. Tears burned in her eyes, but she blinked them back. She would not cry. She would not give them that. "My mom is coming," she said quietly. Tyler crouched down to her level. "No, she's not. Because she doesn't exist. And even if she did, she wouldn't be a SEAL. Women can't be SEALs. Everyone knows that." "You're wrong." "I'm never wrong." Tyler stood up. "Come on, let's go. This is boring now." They walked away laughing. Madison was already typing on her phone, probably uploading the video. The other kids followed without looking back. Sophia stayed on the floor. Her drawing was ruined. The gold trident was smeared into an unrecognizable blob. The word hero was torn in half, but she didn't move. Because somewhere she knew her mother was on her way, and when Elena Reyes arrived, everything would change. The hallway was quiet for almost 3 minutes. Sophia counted her breaths. In and out, in and out. The way her mom had taught her when the nightmares came. The way her mom breathed before missions, she said. Calm and steady, even when everything was loud. She was reaching for her ruined drawing when she heard footsteps. Not the scattered sounds of kids running, not the click of a teacher's heels. These footsteps were different, measured, deliberate, the kind of steps that didn't hurry because they didn't need to. Sophia looked up, and there she was. Elena Reyes walked down the hallway like she owned every inch of it. She wasn't tall, 5'5" on a good day with dark hair pulled back into a tight bun and a face that gave nothing away. She wore her navy working uniform crisp and pressed, and on her chest, catching the fluorescent light like it was made of fire, sat the trident. The SEAL trident. The pin that fewer than 50 women in history had ever earned. Sophia scrambled to her feet. "Mom!" Elena's eyes swept the hallway in one fluid motion. She saw her daughter's tear-streaked face, the red mark on her shin, the torn drawing on the floor, and she understood. "Sophia." Elena's voice was calm, controlled. "What happened?" "They didn't believe me." Sophia's voice cracked. I told them you were a seal, and they laughed, and then they kicked me." Elena didn't react, not visibly, but something shifted behind her eyes, something cold and calculating and absolutely lethal. "Who?" "The Harrington boy, Tyler, and his sister recorded it." Elena nodded once. She reached down and picked up the torn drawing, studied it for a moment. The smeared trident, the ripped word. "You made this for me," she said quietly, "for the showcase. But it's ruined now." Elena smoothed the paper gently. "Nothing's ruined. It just has a story now." She folded it carefully and slipped it into her pocket. "Stay here." "Mom." "Stay here, Sophia." Elena straightened and walked toward the multi-purpose room. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway like a countdown. The multi-purpose room was still buzzing with conversation when Elena pushed through the door. She didn't announce herself, didn't need to. Within seconds, heads were turning. Conversations were dying, eyes were widening. Because everyone in that room knew what a trident looked like. And everyone in that room had just realized they'd made a terrible mistake. Patricia Harrington was mid-sentence when she saw Elena. Her coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Her face went pale. "Frank," she whispered. Colonel Frank Harrington turned, and for the first time in 23 years of military service, he felt his stomach drop. The woman standing in the doorway wasn't tall, wasn't imposing in the traditional sense, but she carried herself with the kind of quiet authority that made four-star generals take notice. Her uniform was immaculate, her posture was perfect, and on her chest sat a pin that only the most elite warriors in the world had ever earned. "Oh my God!" Derek Shaw breathed. Elena scanned the room. Her eyes moved from face to face, cataloging, assessing the way she'd done in 100 combat zones before. She found what she was looking for. Tyler Harrington stood near the snack table, phone in hand, laughing at something Madison had just shown him. He hadn't noticed Elena yet, hadn't noticed that the entire room had gone silent. Elena walked toward him. Her footsteps were the only sound. Tyler finally looked up. His smile died instantly. He started. "You kicked my daughter," Elena said. It wasn't a question. Tyler's phone slipped from his fingers. It clattered against the floor and he didn't move to pick it up. She said. She said the truth. Elena stepped closer. "And you kicked her for it." Frank Harrington was moving now, crossing the room with the hurried stride of a man who knew damage control was already too late. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding." Elena didn't look at him. "Your son assaulted an 8-year-old girl in the hallway. Your daughter recorded it. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime." The word hung in the air like smoke. Patricia rushed over her heels, clicking frantically. "Now wait just a minute. Tyler would never." "He did." Elena finally turned. Her eyes met Patricia's, and whatever Patricia saw there made her take a step back. "Your son kicked my daughter because she told the truth about who I am. Your daughter filmed it and laughed. And you..." Elena's gaze swept across both parents. "You sat in this room and called my child a liar." Frank's jaw tightened. "We didn't know." "You didn't need to know." Elena's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You just needed to be decent human beings. You failed." Derek Shaw stepped forward, hands raised. "Look, let's all calm down. Kids say things, they exaggerate. How were we supposed to know she was telling the truth?" Elena turned to him slowly. "You're a major." "That's right. Then you should know better than anyone that a soldier's word is their bond. My daughter gave hers and you laughed in her face." Elena stepped closer. "I've served alongside men and women who died protecting this country. They didn't die so that their children could be bullied by officers who think their rank makes them untouchable." Derek's face reddened. "Now hold on. I'm not finished." The words cut like a blade. Derek fell silent. Elena turned back to the room. Every eye was on her. Every breath was held. "My name is Lieutenant Commander Elena Reyes," she said. "United States Navy. SEAL Team 3. I've served 17 years. I've completed missions in places most of you have never heard of. I've earned every pin, every ribbon, and every scar on my body." She paused. "And tonight my 8-year-old daughter told you the truth about me and you made her bleed for it." No one spoke. Elena looked at Tyler. "Give me your phone." He scrambled to pick it up, hands shaking so badly he almost dropped it twice. He held it out like an offering. Elena took it. Her fingers moved across the screen with practiced efficiency. The video, the uploads, everything deleted. She handed it back. "If that video appears anywhere," she said quietly, "anywhere at all, I will personally ensure that every commanding officer on this base knows exactly what your family did tonight." Tyler nodded frantically. "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Elena didn't acknowledge his apology. She turned to his parents instead. "You owe my daughter an apology," she said. "And you'll give it tonight." Frank's pride flickered in his eyes, but only for a moment. He'd seen the trident. He knew what it meant, and he knew that the woman standing in front of him had survived things that would break most men in half. "Of course," he said stiffly. Patricia nodded, her face the color of ash. Elena stepped back. The hallway. Now. And she walked out without waiting to see if they followed. They did. Sophia was still sitting on the bench when the adults appeared. Her eyes widened when she saw her mother leading the group, the same people who had laughed at her, mocked her, called her a liar. They looked different now. Smaller, frightened. Elena crouched in front of her daughter. "These people have something to say to you." Sophia looked up at the Harrington family. Tyler couldn't meet her eyes. Madison was crying silently. Patricia looked like she might be sick. Frank cleared his throat. "Sophia, we owe you an apology." Sophia said nothing. "We were wrong," Frank continued. "We shouldn't have said those things. We shouldn't have doubted you." Patricia spoke next, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry we laughed. That was cruel." Tyler stepped forward, his voice cracked. "I'm really sorry I kicked you. I shouldn't have done that. Ever. I was wrong and I'm sorry." Sophia looked at her mother. Elena nodded slightly. Sophia turned back to the group. "Okay, that was all. Just one word." But it was enough. Elena stood. "We're done here." She took Sophia's hand and they walked toward the exit together. Behind them, the Harrington family stood in silence, stripped of their pride, their assumptions, their certainty. At the door, Sophia looked up at her mother. "Mom." "Yeah, baby. They believe me now." Elena squeezed her hand. "They should have believed you all along." They walked out into the night, and behind them, the school had already begun to change. The parking lot was darker than Elena remembered. She walked with Sophia's hand in hers, neither of them speaking. The night air was cool against her face, carrying the faint salt smell from the coast 3 miles away. Behind them, the school lights still glowed, but neither of them looked back. Sophia's grip tightened. "Mom." "Yeah, baby." "Are they going to get in trouble?" Elena didn't answer right away. She unlocked the car with a soft chirp and opened the passenger door. "Get in. We'll talk." Sophia climbed into the seat, her legs dangling above the floor mat. She looked smaller than usual, fragile in a way that made Elena's chest ache. Elena walked around to the driver's side, got in, but didn't start the engine. She sat there in the darkness, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. "Mom, I'm thinking." "About what?" Elena turned to look at her daughter. 8 years old, brave enough to stand in front of a room full of strangers and tell the truth. Brave enough to take a kick and not cry in front of her attackers. "I'm thinking about how proud I am of you." Sophia's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" Elena reached over and brushed a strand of hair from Sophia's face. "You didn't back down. You didn't change your story, even when they hurt you." But they didn't believe me. That's their failure, not yours. Sophia looked down at her hands. The torn drawing was gone, still in Elena's pocket, but her fingers moved like she was still holding it. Tyler said there's no such thing as a female seal. Elena's jaw tightened. Tyler's wrong. I know, but... Sophia hesitated. But why did his dad believe him? His dad's a colonel. Doesn't he know? Elena exhaled slowly. Some people only see what they expect to see. They expected me to be a myth, so that's what they saw. That's stupid. It is. Then why do they do it? Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the torn drawing. She unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases against her thigh. You see this, she said, holding it up. You drew this because you believe in me. You didn't need proof. You didn't need anyone to tell you it was true. You just knew. Sophia nodded. That's the difference between you and them. They need to see something before they'll believe it. You believe first, and then you fight for it. Elena refolded the drawing and handed it to Sophia. That's strength, real strength. Sophia took the paper and held it against her chest. Can we tape it back together when we get home? We can do better than that. We'll frame it. For the first time since the hallway, Sophia smiled. It was small, tentative, but real. Elena started the car. They were halfway home when her phone buzzed. Elena glanced at the screen, a number she recognized. Her commanding officer. She let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it buzzed again. Who is it? Sophia asked. Work. Are you in trouble? Elena almost laughed. No, baby. I'm not in trouble. But she wasn't entirely sure that was true. Word traveled fast on base, faster than she'd like. And what happened tonight, a SEAL confronting a colonel's family at a school event, that kind of thing didn't stay quiet for long. Her phone buzzed a third time, this time a text. Call me. Now. CDR Wells. Elena pulled into their driveway, put the car in park, and turned to Sophia. Go inside. Lock the door. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I just need to make a call. Sophia hesitated, then unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed out. She walked to the front door, unlocked it, and disappeared inside. The porch light flickered on automatically. Elena watched until the door closed. Then she picked up her phone. Commander David Wells answered on the first ring. Reyes, you want to tell me what the hell happened tonight? Good evening to you too, sir. Don't play with me. I've got Colonel Harrington on the other line claiming you threatened his son. Elena's grip tightened on the phone. That's not what happened. Then tell me what did happen. Because right now I've got a very angry full-bird colonel demanding disciplinary action against one of my best operators. Elena took a breath. Controlled. Measured. The way she'd been trained. Sir, my daughter was assaulted at a school event tonight. The Harrington boy kicked her in the hallway. His sister recorded it. When I arrived, I addressed the situation and demanded an apology. Assaulted. Yes, sir. An 8-year-old girl was kicked by a 13-year-old boy because she told the truth about my service. Silence on the other end. Then, she told them you were a SEAL. Yes, sir. They called her a liar. Then they made her bleed for it. More silence. Elena could hear Wells breathing, processing. Reyes, I need you to understand something. Colonel Harrington has friends, influential friends. He's already talking about making this a formal complaint. Let him. Excuse me. Let him file whatever he wants. I have witnesses. I have the truth. And I have 17 years of service that says I don't back down from bullies regardless of what rank they wear. Wells sighed. Elena, I'm not your enemy here. I know that, sir. But I need you to be smart about this. Harrington's ego is bruised. His family is embarrassed. People do stupid things when they're embarrassed. Then maybe he should have taught his son not to assault little girls. Another pause. I'll handle Harrington, Wells finally said. But I need you to stay quiet for now. No more confrontations. No more scenes. Can you do that? Elena looked toward her house. Through the window, she could see Sophia moving around in the kitchen, probably getting herself a glass of water. Sir, I will always protect my daughter. If that means making scenes, then I'll make scenes. Elena, but I hear you. I'll keep my head down. For now. That's all I'm asking. Yes, sir. She hung up before he could say anything else. Inside, Sophia was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of milk and a plate of cookies she'd found in the pantry. She looked up when Elena walked in. Was it a bad call? Elena sat down across from her. Just some work stuff. About tonight. How did you know? Sophia shrugged. You had your serious face on. Elena almost smiled. My serious face. The one where your eyes go all flat and your voice gets super calm. You only do it when something's really wrong. Elena reached over and took a cookie from Sophia's plate. You notice too much. You taught me to notice things. I did, didn't I? They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, eating cookies, the tension of the night slowly unwinding. Mom. Yeah. What's going to happen to Tyler? Elena considered the question. I don't know. That depends on his parents. Will he get in trouble at school? Probably. There were witnesses. The school will have to do something. Sophia nodded slowly. Good. Elena raised an eyebrow. Good. He hurt me. He should have consequences. You're right. He should. But what? Sophia looked down at her milk. But I kind of feel bad for him. Elena leaned back in her chair. Why? Because his dad is really scary. Did you see his face when you walked in? He looked like he wanted to disappear. Elena had noticed. Colonel Harrington's face had gone through about 6 different emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, fear, anger, shame, and finally a kind of hollow acceptance. He knew he'd been outranked in the only way that mattered. You're very observant. I'm your daughter. Elena laughed. Actually laughed. It felt strange after everything that had happened, but it also felt necessary. Yes, you are. The next morning came too fast. Elena woke at 0500 the way she always did, her body's internal clock ignoring the fact that she hadn't fallen asleep until nearly midnight. She lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the previous night. The confrontation, the apologies, the phone call with Wells. Something wasn't finished. She could feel it, the kind of feeling she got on missions when the intel was incomplete, when there was a piece missing. She got up, showered, dressed, and was making coffee when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. FH. Elena stared at the message for a long moment. Frank Harrington, the colonel, the man whose family she'd humiliated in front of an entire school. She typed back, "It is for me." No response. She poured her coffee and drank it standing at the counter watching the sun rise through the kitchen window. Her mind was already running scenarios. Harrington had connections. He could make her life difficult if he wanted to. Not impossible. She had her own record, her own reputation, but difficult. But that was a problem for later. Right now, she had a daughter to take care of. Sophia came downstairs at 7, still in her pajamas, her hair a tangled mess. "Morning, baby." "Morning." Sophia rubbed her eyes. "Is it a school day?" "It's Saturday." "Oh, good." She climbed onto a stool at the kitchen counter. "Can we have pancakes?" Already started. Sophia watched her mother move around the kitchen with quiet efficiency. Elena cracked eggs, measured flour, whisked batter, all with the same precision she applied to everything else in her life. "Mom." "Yeah." "Can I ask you something?" "Always." Sophia hesitated. "When you were in SEAL training, did people believe you?" Elena paused mid-whisk. "What do you mean? Like when you told people you were trying to become a SEAL? Did they believe you or did they laugh?" Elena set down the bowl and turned to face her daughter fully. "They laughed," she said quietly. "A lot of them laughed." "What did you do?" "I stopped talking, and I started proving." Sophia tilted her head. "What does that mean?" Elena leaned against the counter. "It means I realized that some people will never believe words. They only believe actions. So I stopped trying to convince them with words, and I started showing them with everything I did." "Is that why you don't talk about work very much?" Partly. Most of what I do is classified, but partly, yes. I learned that actions speak louder, that results matter more than explanations. Sophia nodded, slowly processing this. So when Tyler said there's no such thing as a female SEAL, he was wrong, and now he knows it. Because you showed him. Because I showed him. Sophia smiled. You're really cool, Mom. Elena turned back to the stove, but not before Sophia caught the slight curve of her mother's lips. Eat your pancakes when they're ready. Yes, ma'am. The knock came at 9:30. Elena was cleaning up the breakfast dishes when she heard it. 3 sharp raps. Official sounding. She dried her hands and walked to the door. Through the peephole, she saw a face she recognized. Master Chief Robert Torres, her direct superior at the team. Behind him stood another figure, Commander Wells. This wasn't a social call. She opened the door. Ma'am, Torres said, we need to talk. Come in. They filed into the living room. Sophia appeared at the top of the stairs, curious. Go to your room, baby. I'll come get you in a bit. Sophia hesitated, then nodded and disappeared. Elena turned to her visitors. Coffee. No time, Wells said. Reyes, we have a situation. I'm listening. Wells glanced at Torres, then back at Elena. Colonel Harrington filed a formal complaint this morning. He's claiming you assaulted his son and threatened his family. Elena's expression didn't change. That's a lie. I know. But he's got witnesses lined up. Parents from the event who say you were aggressive and intimidating. I was, because they assaulted my daughter. That's the problem. Wells ran a hand over his face. It's your word against theirs, and there are more of them. Torres spoke up. The video the girl took, the one you deleted. They're claiming you destroyed evidence. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Evidence of what? A crime they filmed, a minor being assaulted. I deleted footage that showed my daughter being victimized. I understand, Torres said, but they're spinning it differently. They're saying you deleted proof that the encounter was mutual, that Sophia provoked, an 8-year-old provoked a 13-year-old into kicking her. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm saying that's the narrative they're building. Elena turned away, her hands clenching at her sides. She walked to the window and stared out at the morning light. What are my options? Wells stepped closer. Option 1, you apologize. Publicly. Make this go away. No. Option 2, we fight it through official channels. Investigation, hearings. Your record will be scrutinized. Harrington's will be too, but he's got 30 years of goodwill built up. And option 3, Wells and Torres exchanged a look. There is no option 3, Wells said quietly. Not officially. Elena turned back to face them. Then I'll take option 2. I'm not apologizing for protecting my daughter. Torres nodded slowly. I figured you'd say that. Then why are you here? Because we wanted you to hear it from us first. Torres stepped forward. Reyes, you're one of the best operators I've ever worked with, man or woman. You've earned everything you have, but Harrington isn't going to fight fair. He's going to drag your family into this. He's going to make it personal. It already is personal. Then it's going to get worse. Elena let that sink in. She thought about Sophia upstairs, about the torn drawing now sitting on her dresser waiting to be framed, about the smile on her daughter's face when she'd handed her the paper. Let it get worse, she said. I've survived worse. Wells nodded once. Then we'll support you, officially and unofficially. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. I know. They left a few minutes later. Elena stood in the doorway watching their car pull away, her mind already racing through possibilities. Harrington wanted a war. Fine. She'd give him one. Sophia was sitting on her bed when Elena came up. What happened? Elena sat down beside her. Some people are upset about last night. The Harringtons. Yes. Are you going to get in trouble? Elena put her arm around Sophia's shoulders. Maybe, but that's not your concern. But it is my concern. It's my fault. If I hadn't said... Stop. Elena's voice was firm but gentle. You told the truth. That's never wrong. Whatever happens next, it's not because of what you said. It's because of how they reacted. Sophia leaned into her mother's side. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me. Baby, listen to me. Elena turned Sophia to face her hands on her daughter's shoulders. I would walk through fire for you. I would fight every colonel in the Navy for you. I would burn down my career and start over from nothing if it meant keeping you safe. Do you understand? Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Why? Because you're my daughter. And nothing is more important than that. Sophia threw her arms around Elena's neck and held on tight. Elena closed her eyes and held her back. Outside, the world was spinning toward conflict. Harrington was plotting. The investigation was starting. Her career hung in the balance, but in this moment, none of that mattered. She had her daughter, and she would protect her until her last breath. The phone rang at noon. Elena picked it up without checking the number. Reyes. Lieutenant Commander Reyes. A woman's voice. Professional. This is Janet Morrison from the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. We need to schedule an interview regarding an incident at Bayside Elementary School last evening. Elena closed her eyes. It had begun. When? Monday morning, 0800, our offices at the base. I'll be there. Thank you. And, Lieutenant Commander, you have the right to have legal representation present. I understand. She hung up. NCIS. Harrington wasn't playing around. He'd escalated this beyond the school, beyond the base command, straight to criminal investigation. Elena walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street. Normal families doing normal things, mowing lawns, walking dogs, living lives without the weight of betrayal pressing down on them. She thought about her 17 years of service, the missions, the sacrifices, the nights she'd spent away from Sophia doing things she could never talk about, protecting a country that sometimes didn't even know her name. And now it might all come down to a confrontation in a school hallway. But she'd meant what she said to Sophia. She would burn it all down if she had to, because some things were worth more than careers, more than medals, more than the approval of men who'd never questioned their own place in the world. Her daughter's dignity was one of those things. Her daughter's truth was one of those things. And if the Navy couldn't see that, then maybe the Navy didn't deserve her anymore. Elena turned away from the window and walked back upstairs. Sophia was waiting for her, the torn drawing now in her hands, smoothing the creases again and again. Mom, can we still frame it? Elena knelt beside her and took the drawing gently. Yes, baby. We'll frame it today. And every time you look at it, I want you to remember something. What? That the truth always wins. Even when it costs everything. Even when the whole world says you're lying. She touched Sophia's face softly. The truth always wins. Sophia nodded. And somewhere across the base, Colonel Frank Harrington was making phone calls, gathering allies, preparing his attack. He didn't know it yet, but he'd already lost. Monday morning arrived like a verdict waiting to be delivered. Elena woke at 04:30, an hour earlier than usual. She hadn't slept well. Dreams kept pulling her back to places she'd rather forget. Desert sand gunfire, the weight of a teammate's body across her shoulders. She'd learned long ago that stress didn't give her nightmares about the future. It gave her nightmares about the past. She showered dressed in her service uniform and spent 15 minutes making sure every crease was perfect, every ribbon aligned, every surface polished. If NCIS wanted to see Lieutenant Commander Elena Reyes, they were going to see her at her best. Sophia was still asleep when Elena checked on her. The framed drawing sat on her nightstand, now the tape invisible behind the glass, the word hero, whole, again. Elena stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching her daughter breathe. Then she closed the door softly and went downstairs. Her neighbor Mrs. Chen arrived at 06:30 to watch Sophia for the day. She was a retired school teacher, 72 years old, with kind eyes and a spine of steel. How bad is it? Mrs. Chen asked as Elena gathered her keys. I don't know yet. That bad then? Elena almost smiled. Maybe. Mrs. Chen squeezed her arm. That little girl upstairs thinks you hung the moon. Don't forget that when they try to dim your light. Elena nodded once and walked out the door. The NCIS offices were located in a nondescript building near the base's administrative center. Elena had been here before years ago for a routine debrief after an overseas operation. The waiting room looked exactly the same. Beige walls, uncomfortable chairs, a water cooler that hummed too loudly. She arrived at 07:45, 15 minutes early. She sat in one of the uncomfortable chairs and waited. At 07:58, a door opened. Lieutenant Commander Reyes, they're ready for you. She followed the aide down a hallway and into a conference room. 3 people sat on one side of a long table. Elena recognized Special Agent Marcus Webb, a tall man with gray temples and the kind of face that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. The other 2 were unfamiliar. A younger woman with a notepad, an older man in civilian clothes who looked like a lawyer. Please sit down, Webb said. Elena took the chair across from them. Her hands rested flat on the table. Her posture was perfect. Thank you for coming in, Webb continued. I'm sure you understand why we're here. I have a general idea. Good. Then let's get started. Webb opened a folder in front of him. On Thursday evening, you attended a parent-teacher event at Bayside Elementary School. Is that correct? Yes. And during that event, there was an altercation involving your daughter, Sophia Reyes, and Tyler Harrington, the son of Colonel Frank Harrington. There was an assault, Elena corrected. Tyler Harrington kicked my 8-year-old daughter in the hallway. Webb's expression didn't change. We'll get to that. First, I'd like to hear your account of what happened when you arrived at the school. Elena told them. Every detail, from the moment she walked through the doors to the moment she and Sophia drove away. She left nothing out. She exaggerated nothing. When she finished, Webb leaned back in his chair. Colonel Harrington tells a different story. I'm sure he does. And he says you were aggressive, threatening, that you cornered his son and intimidated him into deleting a video. His son filmed my daughter being assaulted. I asked him to delete it. He complied. Asked or demanded. Elena met Webb's eyes. I don't think a 13-year-old boy can tell the difference when he's just been caught doing something wrong. The younger woman wrote something in her notepad. Webb continued. Several witnesses claim you made threatening statements toward the Harrington family. I told them they owed my daughter an apology. That's not a threat. That's a fact. And you said, Webb glanced at his notes, that if the video appeared anywhere, you would ensure every commanding officer on base knew what happened. I did say that. That sounds like a threat. It sounds like a consequence. There's a difference. Webb studied her for a long moment. Lieutenant Commander, I've read your service record. It's exceptional. 17 years. Multiple commendations. One of the first women to complete SEAL training. You're not the kind of person who usually ends up in this room. I'm not the kind of person who usually has to defend my daughter from being attacked at a school event. Fair point. Webb closed the folder. But here's my problem. Colonel Harrington has a lot of friends. He's been making calls all weekend. He wants your career, Lieutenant Commander. He wants you discharged. Elena didn't flinch. Then he's going to be disappointed. Maybe, but he's also got 3 witnesses who say your daughter started the confrontation by lying about your service. My daughter didn't lie. They say she did. Then they're the liars. The room went quiet. Webb leaned forward. Let me be clear about something. I don't think you did anything wrong, personally, but personally doesn't matter in this room. What matters is evidence, and right now the evidence is conflicting. Then find more evidence. We're trying. That's why you're here. Elena's jaw tightened. What do you need from me? The truth. All of it. Including anything that might help us understand why Colonel Harrington is pushing so hard for your head. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Because I embarrassed him. Explain. His family mocked my daughter in front of dozens of people. They called her a liar. They laughed at her. And then his son assaulted her. When I walked into that school, I wasn't just a mother defending her child. I was proof that everything they'd said was wrong. And that embarrassed him. That destroyed him. In front of his peers, his colleagues, his family. A woman he'd been taught didn't exist walked into his world and made him look like a fool. Webb nodded slowly. So, this isn't really about what happened in the hallway. No, this is about what I represent, and what he can't accept. The older man in civilian clothes spoke for the first time. Lieutenant Commander, I'm David Chen-Jag, liaison. I need to ask you something directly. Go ahead. Are you willing to fight this? Because if Harrington gets his way, you could lose everything. Your rank, your pension, your career. Elena looked at him. Mr. Chen, I've fought in places where the enemy wanted to kill me. I've survived things that would break most people. I'm not going to lose sleep over a colonel with a bruised ego. Chen almost smiled. Good, because this is going to get ugly. It already is. The interview lasted another 2 hours. They went over every detail again and again. Elena answered every question the same way each time, consistent, clear, unshakable. When it was finally over, Webb stood and extended his hand. Thank you for your time, Lieutenant Commander. Elena shook it. When will I know something? We'll complete our investigation within the week. You'll be notified of the findings. And until then? Until then, you're on administrative leave. Effective immediately. Elena's stomach dropped, but her face showed nothing. Understood. She walked out of the building into the bright morning sun. The world looked exactly the same as it had 3 hours ago. But everything had changed. Administrative leave, pending investigation, her career hanging by a thread. She got into her car, closed the door, and sat there in silence. Then she pulled out her phone and called the one person she knew would understand. Master Chief Robert Torres answered on the second ring. Reyes, how'd it go? They put me on admin leave. A pause. Damn. Yeah. What's the timeline? 1 week, maybe less. And Harrington, still pushing, hard. Torres exhaled heavily. Listen to me. You've got people in your corner, more than you know. This isn't over. I know it's not over, but they're trying to make it over before it really starts. Then don't let them. You've survived buds. You've survived combat. You can survive a bureaucratic hit job. Elena almost laughed. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's doable. You just have to fight smarter than they expect. How? Torres was quiet for a moment. Then, Harrington's not clean. Nobody pushes this hard unless they've got something to hide. Find out what it is. You think there's something? I think a man who lets his 13-year-old son assault a little girl didn't learn that behavior yesterday. Dig, Reyes. Dig deep. Elena stared out through the windshield. I'll need help. You'll have it. Call me tonight. We'll figure out our next move. Thanks, Chief. Don't thank me yet. Just survive this. She hung up and started the car. Sophia was waiting at the door when Elena got home. How did it go? Elena crouched down to her daughter's level. It went okay. You're lying. Elena blinked. What? You have your lying face on. The one where you smile but your eyes don't. Elena's heart cracked a little. This kid noticed everything. You're right, she admitted. It didn't go great, but it's going to be okay. Promise. Elena hesitated. She never made promises she couldn't keep. It was a rule she'd lived by since Sophia was born. I promise I'm going to fight for us, no matter what. Sophia studied her mother's face for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay. Okay. Yeah. If you're fighting, then we'll win. You always win. Elena pulled her daughter into a tight hug. Not always, baby. Always, Sophia repeated firmly. Always. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Elena sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open. Torres had said to dig, so she dug. Colonel Frank Harrington, 31 years of service, multiple deployments, commendations, awards, the kind of career that looked spotless on paper. But paper lied. Elena knew that better than anyone. She started with public records, news articles, social media, anything that mentioned Harrington's name. Most of it was routine. Promotions, ceremonies, the occasional photo op with local politicians. Then she found something. A news story from 8 years ago. A harassment complaint filed by a female officer under Harrington's command. The case had been dismissed. Insufficient evidence. The officer had transferred to another base shortly after. Elena saved the article and kept searching. Another complaint. 5 years ago. Different officer. Same result. Dismissed. Officer transferred. A pattern. She searched deeper. Found a military forum where anonymous posters shared stories about toxic commanders. Harrington's name appeared 3 times. Always the same story. Female officers who questioned him. Female officers who disappeared. Not literally, but professionally. Their careers derailed. Their reputations destroyed. All without Harrington ever getting his hands dirty. Elena leaned back in her chair. "Son of a bitch," she whispered. He'd done this before. Many times. He'd built a career on silencing women who challenged him. And now he was trying to do the same thing to her. But she wasn't a young officer with no support. She was a Navy SEAL with 17 years of combat experience and a network that stretched across every special operations unit in the country. She picked up her phone and texted Torres. Found something. Multiple complaints, same pattern. He's been doing this for years. The response came 30 seconds later. Good. Now we have ammunition. Meet me tomorrow. 0600. The usual place. Elena put down her phone and closed her laptop. For the first time since Thursday night, she felt something other than defensive anger. She felt like a hunter who'd just found her prey's trail. The next morning, she met Torres at a coffee shop off base. Neutral territory. No uniforms. No ranks. Just 2 warriors planning a campaign. Torres slid a folder across the table. Read this. Elena opened it. Inside were printouts. More complaints. More transfers. A pattern that stretched back almost 15 years. Where did you get this? I have friends in JAG. Friends who've been watching Harrington for a long time. Why hasn't anyone done anything? Because he's protected. He knows the right people. Says the right things. Plays the game better than anyone. Torres leaned forward. But he's never gone after someone like you. Someone like me. Someone with a trident. Someone the teams would go to war for. He made a mistake picking this fight Reyes. Now we make him pay for it. Elena studied the documents. Names, dates, patterns, evidence that had been buried, ignored, swept under the rug. This is enough to end his career. If it gets to the right people, and if it doesn't, Torres's jaw tightened, then we make sure it does. Elena closed the folder. What's the play? NCIS is investigating you. But what if we give them something bigger to investigate? Something they can't ignore? Harrington. Exactly. We don't attack. We redirect. Make them see that the real threat isn't a mother who defended her daughter. It's a colonel who's been destroying careers for 15 years. Elena nodded slowly. It's risky. Everything worth doing is risky. If this backfires, we both go down. Then we better make sure it doesn't backfire. Elena looked at Torres. This man had been her mentor for 7 years. He'd pushed her harder than anyone during training. He'd believed in her when others didn't. Why are you doing this? She asked. You could stay out of it. Protect yourself. Torres was quiet for a moment. Then, because I have 2 daughters, and I want them to grow up in a world where a woman can wear a trident without having to prove she deserves it, where an 8-year-old can tell the truth about her mother without getting kicked for it. He paused. You're not just fighting for Sofia Reyes. You're fighting for all of them. Elena felt the weight of those words settle into her chest. All of them. Every little girl who'd ever been told she couldn't. Every woman who'd ever been silenced. Every mother who'd ever had to choose between her career and her child. "Okay," she said. "Let's do this." Torres pulled out a second folder. "Here's what we need to do." 3 days later, Elena got the call she'd been waiting for. "Lieutenant Commander Reyes, this is Special Agent Webb. I need you to come back in." "When?" "Now. There's been a development." She drove to the NCIS offices with her heart pounding, but it wasn't fear, it was anticipation. Webb met her at the entrance. His face was unreadable. "Follow me." They walked to the same conference room, but this time there were more people inside. JAG officers, base command representatives, and in the corner, looking like he wanted to put his fist through a wall, sat Colonel Frank Harrington. Elena sat down across from him. Their eyes met. Neither looked away. Webb cleared his throat. "Lieutenant Commander Reyes, we've completed our investigation, and we've uncovered some additional information." Harrington's jaw tightened. It appears that Colonel Harrington has a history of filing complaints against female officers who challenge his authority. A history that spans 15 years. A history that includes multiple transfers, career derailments, and at least 6 formal complaints that were dismissed without proper investigation. The room was dead silent. Webb continued. "In light of this information, we are recommending that all charges against Lieutenant Commander Reyes be dropped. Furthermore, we are opening a separate investigation into Colonel Harrington's conduct over the past decade and a half." Harrington exploded out of his chair. "This is a setup. She orchestrated this. She—" "Sit down, Colonel." The voice came from the back of the room. A 2-star admiral Elena had never met. But she recognized the look in his eyes. The look of a man who was done tolerating bullies. Harrington sat. "Colonel Harrington," the admiral said, "you are hereby relieved of command pending investigation. You will surrender your base credentials by the end of the day. Is that understood?" Harrington's face was the color of raw meat. "This isn't over." Elena spoke for the first time. "Yes, it is." He turned to her eyes blazing with hatred. "You think you've won? You think this changes anything? You're still just a Navy SEAL," Elena finished. "A mother, and the woman who just ended your career." Harrington had no response. Elena stood, nodded to Webb and the Admiral, and walked out of the room. Behind her, she could hear Harrington shouting, protesting, threatening. But it didn't matter anymore. She stepped into the sunlight and pulled out her phone. One text to Torres. "It's done." One text to Sophia. "Coming home. We won." She got in her car and drove toward her daughter. Sophia was sitting on the front porch when Elena pulled into the driveway. She jumped up before the car even stopped running, barefoot across the grass, her braids flying behind her. Elena barely had time to open the door before Sophia crashed into her arms. "We won," Sophia asked, her voice muffled against Elena's uniform. "We won." Sophia pulled back her eyes, searching her mother's face. "Really, it's over." Elena crouched down so they were eye to eye. "It's over, baby. They dropped everything, and Colonel Harrington is in big trouble now." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind where he might lose his job." Sophia's eyes went wide. "Because of what Tyler did. Because of what he did, for a long time, to a lot of people." Sophia was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then she said something that caught Elena completely off guard. "Do you feel sorry for Tyler?" Elena blinked. "What?" "Tyler. His dad's losing his job. That's going to be really hard for him." Elena stared at her daughter. 8 years old, kicked by a boy twice her size, mocked by his family. And here she was asking about his feelings. "You're incredible," Elena whispered. "You know that. I'm just asking." "I know you are." Elena stood and took Sophia's hand. "And honestly, I don't know how I feel about Tyler. What he did was wrong. But you're right. This is going to be hard for his whole family. Maybe he'll learn something. Maybe he will." They walked inside together, and for the first time in days, Elena felt like she could breathe. The news spread fast. By that evening, Elena's phone was buzzing constantly. Text messages from teammates, calls from old friends, emails from people she hadn't heard from in years. Word had gotten out about Harrington. Not the official details, those were still classified, but enough. Enough for people to understand that a colonel had finally been held accountable, and that a female SEAL had been the one to bring him down. Master Chief Torres called at 1900. "How does it feel?" Elena laughed. "Ask me in a week." "Fair enough. Listen, there's something you should know." "What?" "Harrington's wife came to base today. She was asking questions, trying to find out who talked." Elena's grip tightened on the phone. "Is that a threat?" "I don't think so. She looked more scared than angry. Word is she didn't know about the complaints, any of them. She didn't know her husband was destroying women's careers for 15 years. She says she didn't. Whether that's true..." Torres let the sentence hang. Elena thought about Patricia Harrington, the smug smile, the dismissive laugh, the way she'd called Sophia sweetheart like it was an insult. "I don't feel sorry for her." "You don't have to, but you should be aware. This isn't over for their family, and desperate people do desperate things." "Understood." "Stay alert, Reyes." "Always." She hung up and looked over at Sophia, who was curled up on the couch with a book. Stay alert. Even in victory, there were still battles to come. The next 3 days passed in a strange kind of limbo. Elena was technically still on administrative leave pending final paperwork. She spent the time doing things she never had time for: cooking real meals, helping Sophia with homework, sitting on the porch in the afternoon sun. It felt foreign, almost uncomfortable. Her body was trained for action, for movement, for purpose. Sitting still felt like surrender. On Thursday morning, her phone rang. An unknown number. She answered anyway. "Reyes," a woman's voice, shaky, uncertain. "Lieutenant Commander Reyes, this is Patricia Harrington." Elena's entire body went still. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from," Patricia continued. "But I need to talk to you, please." "Why would I talk to you?" "Because I need to apologize, in person, and because there are things you should know." Elena was silent for a long moment. Every instinct told her to hang up. This woman had laughed at her daughter, had watched while Sophia was mocked and dismissed. But something in Patricia's voice stopped her. Fear, real fear, not the performance kind. "Where?" "There's a coffee shop off base, the one on Maple Street. Can you meet me in an hour?" "I'll be there." She hung up and stared at the phone. What the hell was she doing? Patricia Harrington looked like she hadn't slept in days. She was sitting at a corner table when Elena arrived, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup she wasn't drinking. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, no designer bag. She looked like a completely different person from the woman at the school. Elena sat down across from her. "Thank you for coming," Patricia said quietly. "I almost didn't." "I know." Patricia's eyes finally met hers. "I deserve that." Elena didn't argue. "I want to apologize," Patricia continued, "for what happened at the school, for what I said, for what I let happen to your daughter." "Let happen? You encouraged it." Patricia flinched. "You're right, I did. And I've been thinking about that every second since. Why? Because I didn't know who I'd become." Patricia's voice cracked. "I've spent 30 years being Frank's wife, following his rules, believing his version of everything, and I never questioned it, not once." Elena leaned back in her chair. "You expect me to feel sorry for you?" "No, I don't expect anything. But I need you to understand something." Patricia reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Frank didn't just do this to other women. He did it to me." She unfolded the paper and slid it across the table. Elena looked down. It was a medical report. Emergency room. Dated 3 years ago. Fractured rib. Contusions on the upper arm. Patient reported falling downstairs. Elena's stomach turned. "He hit you." Patricia nodded, tears streaming down her face now. "More than once. But I never told anyone. I couldn't. He said he'd destroy me. And I believed him." "Patricia." I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because you need to know what kind of man he really is. And because... She hesitated. Because I heard what you did. How you fought back. How you won. This isn't about winning. No. It's about surviving. And you survived him. I never could. Elena stared at the woman across from her, the same woman who had laughed at Sophia, who had called her a liar, who had stood by while her son kicked an 8-year-old girl. And suddenly Elena saw something else. A victim, trapped for 30 years, defending her abuser because she didn't know any other way. What do you want from me? Elena asked. I want to testify against Frank. I want to tell them everything. The abuse, the threats, the things he said about the women he destroyed. I want to help end this. But I'm scared. Scared of what? Of him. Even now. Even with everything falling apart. I'm still scared of what he might do. Elena reached across the table and took Patricia's hand. It was the last thing she expected to do, but it felt right. You don't have to be scared anymore, she said. He's not in control anymore. And if you're willing to talk, I'll make sure someone listens. Patricia broke down completely, shoulders shaking, years of silence finally spilling out. Elena sat with her until the tears stopped. 2 days later, Patricia Harrington gave a formal statement to NCIS. She told them everything, the abuse, the cover-ups, the threats he'd made against her and the children if she ever spoke out. She gave them names, dates, details that only someone on the inside could know. The investigation expanded. What had started as a complaint about a school incident became something much bigger, a decades-long pattern of abuse and intimidation. A colonel who had used his rank as a weapon against anyone who challenged him, including his own wife. Elena watched from the sidelines as the walls closed in around Frank Harrington, and she felt something she hadn't expected. Not triumph, not satisfaction, sadness. Because this wasn't a victory, it was a tragedy. A man who could have been so much more destroyed by his own cruelty. A family shattered. Children who would carry this weight for the rest of their lives. Sophia noticed the change in her mother's mood. Are you okay? She asked one evening. Elena looked up from the stove. I'm okay, just thinking. About the Harringtons. Yeah. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then, Mom, do you think people can change? Elena set down the spatula and turned to face her daughter. I think some people can. If they want to. If they're willing to do the work. Do you think Tyler can change? I don't know, baby, that's up to him. I hope he does. Elena smiled. You're too good for this world, you know that. You always say that. Because it's always true. The following Monday, Elena received official notification. Her administrative leave was terminated. All allegations had been dismissed. She was cleared to return to duty immediately. Commander Wells delivered the news in person. Congratulations, Reyes, you survived. Barely. Sometimes barely is enough. He handed her a folder. There's something else. A commendation from the Admiral for your role in exposing Harrington's pattern of behavior. Elena opened the folder and read the letter inside. It praised her courage, her integrity, her willingness to stand up against a superior officer in defense of her daughter and the other women Harrington had victimized. I didn't do this for a commendation, she said. I know, that's why you're getting one. Wells paused. You know, Reyes, when you first came to the teams, a lot of people didn't think you belonged. They said women weren't cut out for this work, that you'd wash out, that you'd quit. I remember. You proved them wrong, every single one of them, and you're still proving them wrong. He extended his hand. It's an honor to serve with you, Lieutenant Commander. Elena shook his hand. Thank you, sir. Now get back to work. The teams need you. That night, Elena and Sophia had a celebration dinner. Nothing fancy, just pizza and ice cream and a movie on the couch. But it felt like a feast. Mom, Sophia said halfway through her second slice. Yeah. Can I ask you something? Always. When you were in SEAL training, did you ever want to quit? Elena set down her pizza. Honestly, every single day. Sophia's eyes went wide. Really? Really? There were mornings when I couldn't feel my legs. Nights when I was so cold I thought I'd never be warm again. Times when the instructors screamed in my face and told me I didn't belong. Elena paused. But I didn't quit. Why not? Because I made myself a promise. That no matter how hard it got, I would never give up. I would never let them be right about me. Who's them? Everyone who said I couldn't. Everyone who laughed. Everyone who thought a woman didn't belong in a combat unit. Elena reached over and squeezed Sophia's hand. And now I'm going to make you the same promise. What promise? That I will never give up on you, no matter what happens, no matter how hard things get. I will always be in your corner. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Even when I mess up, especially when you mess up. Sophia launched herself across the couch and wrapped her arms around Elena's neck. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. More than anything in this world. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in front of a crowd. It wasn't a military ceremony. It wasn't an official event. It was the next PTA meeting at Bayside Elementary. Mrs. Patterson had asked if she would speak. Just a few words about her experience, about what it meant to be a female service member, about the importance of believing children when they tell the truth. Elena had said yes. Sophia sat in the front row, her newly framed drawing clutched in her lap. The tape was still visible behind the glass, but Sophia had decided that made it more special, not less. A few weeks ago, Elena began. My daughter stood up in this room and told you who I am, and some of you laughed. The audience shifted uncomfortably. I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here to ask you a question. She paused. What do we teach our children when we dismiss what they say? When we mock them for speaking the truth? When we tell them their experiences don't matter because we've already decided what's possible? Silence. My daughter is 8 years old. She's brave, she's kind, she's stronger than most adults I know, and she deserved to be believed. Elena's voice softened. They all do. Every child who speaks up deserves to be heard. Whether their parent is a SEAL or a secretary or a stay-at-home mom, every child's truth matters. She looked at Sophia. And every parent's job is to protect that truth, no matter what it costs. The room was completely still. Then slowly someone started clapping. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, the entire room was on their feet. Elena didn't smile, didn't bow. She just nodded once and stepped away from the microphone. Sophia ran to her and grabbed her hand. That was amazing, she whispered. I meant every word. I know. Sophia looked up at her mother with shining eyes. You always do. They walked out of the school together, mother and daughter, hand in hand. Behind them, the applause continued. But Elena wasn't listening anymore. She was already thinking about tomorrow, about the next mission, about the life she was building for her daughter. A life where truth mattered, where courage was rewarded, where little girls could grow up believing they could be anything and know deep in their hearts that their mothers would always have their backs. 2 days later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, no signature. Just 3 words written in a child's handwriting. Thank you. Tyler. Elena stared at it for a long moment. Then she folded it carefully, walked to Sophia's room, and taped it to the frame of the drawing on her nightstand. What's that? Sophia asked. Proof, Elena said. Proof of what? Elena smiled and kissed her daughter's forehead. That people can change. 6 months had passed since that night at Bayside Elementary. Elena stood in her kitchen, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise through the window. In 3 hours, she would be on a transport plane heading to a location she couldn't name for a mission she couldn't discuss with a team that trusted her with their lives. But right now, in this moment, she was just a mother. Sophia's footsteps came padding down the stairs. "You're leaving today," Sophia said, not a question. Elena turned. "Yeah, baby, I am." Sophia walked to the counter and climbed onto a stool. Her hair was messy from sleep. Her pajamas had little astronauts on them. She looked so young, so small. "How long?" "I don't know. Maybe 2 weeks, maybe longer." Sophia nodded slowly. They'd had this conversation before. Many times. It never got easier. "Mrs. Chen is going to stay with you," Elena continued. "And Uncle Rob will check in every day." "I know. And you have my emergency number, the one that goes straight to the team." "I know, Mom." Elena set down her coffee and walked around the counter. She crouched in front of her daughter and took both her hands. "I need you to do something for me while I'm gone." "What?" "I need you to be brave." Sophia's eyes met hers. "I'm always brave." "I know you are, but this time I need you to be brave for yourself, not for me, not for anyone else, just for you." "What do you mean?" Elena squeezed her hands. "I mean that if something happens, if anyone says anything, if anyone tries to make you feel small, I need you to remember who you are, and whose daughter you are." Sophia's chin lifted slightly. "I will. Promise me. I promise." Elena pulled her into a hug and held on tight. She memorized the feeling, the weight of Sophia in her arms, the smell of her shampoo, the rhythm of her breathing. This was what she fought for, this moment, this child, this love. "I'll be back," Elena whispered. "I know," Sophia whispered back. "You always come back." The deployment was supposed to be routine, intelligence extraction, asset recovery, the kind of mission Elena had done 100 times before. In and out, clean and quiet. But nothing in combat was ever truly routine. 3 days into the operation, everything went wrong. The asset they were extracting had been compromised. The safe house was surrounded, and Elena's team was pinned down in a building with no backup and dwindling ammunition. She heard the bullets crack overhead as she pressed her back against a crumbling wall. Beside her, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Drake was bleeding from a wound in his shoulder. Across the room, 2 more teammates were holding the door. "Reyes," Drake shouted. "We need an exit." Elena's mind raced. She'd studied the building's layout before the operation. There was a service tunnel in the basement. Old, probably unstable, but it was their only chance. "Follow me." She led them through the darkness downstairs that groaned under their weight into a basement that smelled like mold and forgotten years. The tunnel entrance was behind a rusted metal door that hadn't been opened in decades. Elena hit it with her shoulder. Once. Twice. On the 3rd try, it gave way. Move, move, move. They crawled through the narrow passage, Drake groaning with every movement but never stopping. Behind them, they could hear the enemy entering the building, shouting in a language Elena didn't understand. The tunnel seemed to go on forever. Then, suddenly, light. They emerged into an alley 3 blocks from the extraction point. Elena radioed for pickup, and within minutes, a helicopter appeared overhead. They made it. All of them. But as Elena climbed into the helicopter, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Fear. Real fear. Not for herself, but for what could have happened. What almost happened. She thought of Sophia, of the promise she'd made that morning in the kitchen. You always come back. She had to keep that promise, no matter what. The flight home felt longer than usual. Elena sat in the transport plane surrounded by her teammates, but her mind was thousands of miles away. She kept seeing Sophia's face, hearing her voice. You always come back. Master Chief Torres sat down beside her. You okay? Elena nodded. Fine. You're lying. She almost smiled. Sophia says the same thing. Smart kid. Torres was quiet for a moment. That was close back there. I know. Too close. I know. Torres leaned back. You ever think about getting out? The question hung in the air. Elena had thought about it. Of course she had. Every parent in special operations thought about it. The what-ifs, the almosts, the phone calls that could come at any moment. Sometimes, she admitted. But this is who I am. This is what I do, and I'm good at it. Being good at something isn't always a reason to keep doing it. Elena turned to look at him. What are you saying? I'm saying you have options. You've given 17 years. You've earned every honor this country can give. No one would think less of you if you decided Sophia needed you more than the teams. I can do both. Can you? The question stung because it was fair, because she'd asked it herself 1,000 times, because she didn't know the answer. I'm not ready to quit, she finally said. I'm not asking you to quit. I'm asking you to think. Elena looked out the window at the clouds below. Think. That was all she'd been doing for months, thinking about the future, about what kind of mother she wanted to be, about what kind of legacy she wanted to leave, and she still didn't have answers. Sophia was waiting at the airport when Elena landed. She broke through the crowd and ran straight into her mother's arms, nearly knocking her over. You're back. I'm back. Sophia pulled away just enough to look at her mother's face. You look tired. I am tired. Are you hurt? No, baby. I'm okay. Sophia studied her for a long moment, the way she always did when she was trying to figure out if Elena was telling the truth. Something happened, she said. Elena hesitated. What makes you say that? Your eyes are different. They do this thing when you're worried about something. This kid, this impossibly perceptive kid. Let's go home, Elena said. We'll talk there. That night after dinner, they sat on the porch together. The stars were out. The neighborhood was quiet. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once and then fell silent. You can tell me, Sophia said. Whatever it is. Elena looked at her daughter, 8 years old going on 30, brave and kind and stronger than anyone gave her credit for. Something happened on the mission, Elena began. We got into trouble, bad trouble. Sophia's hand found hers. But you got out. We got out. But for a few minutes there, I wasn't sure we would. Were you scared? Elena nodded. Yeah, I was scared. Of dying. Of not coming back to you. Sophia's grip tightened. But you did. You're here. I'm here. Elena paused. But it made me think about things, about what happens if someday I don't come back. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Then, I've thought about that too. You have, every time you leave. I think about what would happen if you didn't come home. Sophia's voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. But then I remember what you told me. What did I tell you? That fear doesn't get to win. That being brave means doing the hard things even when you're scared. Sophia looked up at her mother. You do hard things, Mom, every day, and you always come back, because you promised. Elena felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She didn't bother wiping them away. When did you get so smart? I learned from you. Elena pulled her daughter close and held her under the stars. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered. Not yet. Not for a long time. I know, Sophia whispered back. But even if you did, even if the worst thing happened, I'd be okay, because you taught me how to be strong. Elena closed her eyes. This was her legacy. Not the missions, not the medals, not the trident on her chest. This child, this brave, beautiful child who knew how to face fear and keep moving forward. This was what mattered. 3 months later, Elena made a decision. She didn't announce it, didn't make a big deal out of it. She just walked into Commander Wells' office one morning and put a piece of paper on his desk. He read it in silence. You're sure about this? I'm sure. You've still got years left. You could make captain, admiral even. I know. Then why? Elena thought about the mission, about the tunnel, about Sophia's face when she came home. Because I've given everything I have to give, and now I need to give what's left to someone else. Wells nodded slowly. Your daughter. My daughter. He stood and extended his hand. It's been an honor, Lieutenant Commander. Elena shook it. The honor was mine, sir. The retirement ceremony was small. Just close friends, family, the teammates who had become brothers and sisters over 17 years of service. Master Chief Torres gave a speech that made Elena cry. Commander Wells presented her with a shadow box containing her medals, her rank insignia, and a folded American flag. Sophia stood beside her the entire time, holding her hand. When it was Elena's turn to speak, she kept it simple. I joined the Navy because I wanted to serve something bigger than myself. I became a SEAL because I wanted to prove that limits are only real if you accept them. And I stayed for 17 years because I loved the work, loved the mission, and loved the people I served with. She paused, looking at the faces around her. But today I'm retiring because I realized something important. The most important mission I'll ever have isn't overseas. It's right here. She looked down at Sophia. It's raising a daughter who believes she can do anything. It's showing her that strength isn't just about fighting, it's about knowing when to stop. It's about being present, being there, being enough. She squeezed Sophia's hand. So thank you, all of you, for everything you've given me, for everything we've done together. I'm proud of every moment, and I'll carry this with me forever. The applause was warm, genuine, the kind of applause that came from people who understood what it cost to walk away. Elena accepted their handshakes, their hugs, their words of appreciation, but her eyes kept drifting back to Sophia, her daughter, her legacy, her future. This was the beginning of something new. 1 year later, Elena stood in the gymnasium of Bayside Elementary School. But this time, she wasn't there as a parent defending her daughter. She was there as a guest speaker. Career Day. The school had invited her to talk about her service, her experience, and what it meant to break barriers in a male-dominated field. Sophia sat in the front row, beaming. Elena looked out at the sea of young faces. Boys and girls, all ages, all backgrounds, all watching her with wide eyes and open minds. Who here has ever been told they couldn't do something? She asked. Almost every hand went up. Who here did it anyway? Fewer hands, but still some. Elena smiled. I spent my whole career being told what I couldn't do. I couldn't join the Navy because I was a woman. I couldn't try out for the SEALs because women weren't allowed. I couldn't be a mother and an operator at the same time. She paused. But here's the thing about can't. It's just a word. It has no power unless you give it power. And I refuse to give it anything. The kids were listening intently now. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that everything is possible if you just believe hard enough. That's not true. Life is hard. Some doors really are closed. Some paths really are blocked. Elena's voice softened. But here's what I will tell you. The most important thing you can ever do is try. Even when it's scary. Even when people laugh. Even when they tell you you're wrong. She looked at Sophia. 1 year ago, my daughter stood in this school and told the truth about who I am. And people laughed at her. They called her a liar. They hurt her. Elena's jaw tightened. But she didn't back down. She didn't change her story. She stood her ground and waited for the truth to win. The gymnasium was completely silent. That's courage. Real courage. Not the kind you see in movies. The kind that lives inside you when everything is falling apart and you choose to keep standing anyway. Elena stepped back from the microphone. So when someone tells you that you can't, when someone laughs at your dreams or mocks your truth, I want you to remember something. You don't have to convince them. You don't have to prove anything to anyone except yourself. You just have to keep going. Keep trying. Keep believing. She smiled. Because someday you'll walk into a room full of doubters, and they'll see exactly who you are, and they'll never doubt again. The applause started slowly, then grew into a wave. Kids were clapping, teachers were clapping, parents in the back were wiping their eyes. Sophia ran up to the stage and threw her arms around her mother. That was amazing, she whispered. I meant every word. I know. Sophia pulled back and looked up at her. Mom, yeah. I want to be like you when I grow up. Elena crouched down so they were eye to eye. No, baby. I want you to be better. Sophia grinned. Deal. Shen. They walked out of the school together, hand in hand. The sun was bright. The air was warm. The world was full of possibility. Mom, Sophia said. Yeah. Do you miss it, being a SEAL? Elena thought about it. The missions, the camaraderie, the rush of doing something that mattered. Sometimes, she admitted, but I don't regret leaving. Why not? Because I get to be here, with you, watching you grow up, watching you become the person you're meant to be. Elena squeezed her hand. That's worth more than any mission. Sophia smiled. You're getting soft in your old age. Watch it, kid. I can still do more push-ups than you. Prove it. When we get home. They laughed together, the sound carrying across the parking lot. Behind them, a group of girls from Sophia's class were watching. One of them, a small girl with red hair and freckles, tugged on her friend's sleeve. That's Sophia's mom, she whispered. She was a real Navy SEAL. No way. Yes way, Sophia told me. And it's true. The friend looked at Elena with new eyes. That's so cool. I know. Sophia's so lucky. Ahead of them, Sophia glanced back and caught the girls staring. She gave them a little wave. They waved back, starstruck. Sophia turned to her mother. They're talking about you. Let them. Doesn't it bother you? Being stared at? Elena shook her head. Not anymore. I spent too many years worrying about what other people thought. Now I just focus on what matters. What matters? Elena looked at her daughter, this brave, brilliant child who had stood up for the truth when everyone told her she was wrong. You, she said simply, you matter. That night after dinner, Elena and Sophia sat in Sophia's room. The framed drawing still hung on the wall, the one with the smeared trident and the word hero taped back together. Beside it now hung Tyler's note. Thank you, and a new drawing Sophia had made just last week. This one showed two figures, a tall woman with dark hair, a small girl with braids. They were holding hands walking toward a sunset. Underneath in careful letters, Sophia had written, My mom and me, together, forever. Elena touched the frame gently. You're quite an artist. Thanks. Sophia climbed into bed and pulled the covers up. Mom. Yeah. I'm glad you came home. Me too, baby. And I'm glad you stood up for me that night at the school when everyone was laughing. Elena sat on the edge of the bed. I'll always stand up for you. I know. Sophia's eyes were heavy now, sleep pulling her under. But you know what? What? I think I can stand up for myself now too. Elena smiled. I know you can. Because you taught me. No, baby. Elena leaned down and kissed her daughter's forehead. Because you were always strong. I just helped you see it. Sophia's eyes closed. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Sophia, more than anything in this world. She sat there for a long moment, watching her daughter drift into sleep. The moonlight fell across the room, catching the gold crayon of the trident in the framed drawing, making it glow like something precious. Elena stood and walked to the door. She looked back once. Her daughter, her legacy, her greatest mission. Then she turned off the light and stepped into the hallway, leaving the door open just a crack the way Sophia liked it. Outside, the stars were bright. And somewhere in Elena's heart, a promise was kept. She had come home. She had stayed. And the truth, Sophia's truth, her truth, the truth that no one had believed had won. Not because it was loud, not because it was proven, but because it was real. And real things, in the end, always survive. What would you do if your child told the truth and no one believed them? Would you fight like Elena did? Drop your answer in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear. that the truth always wins. And remember, strength isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about being the last one standing when the room finally falls silent.